Hi everyone, welcome to Sunday School this week. In this unit, we've been talking about how we interact with the people around us. We've talked about different groups of people, our families, our neighbors, and our friends. This week, we're going to talk about boundaries. Jesus lived in a time and culture that had very rigid rules and boundaries around things like religion, ethnic groups, social classes, and political beliefs. Jesus spent his whole life challenging these boundaries and encouraged his disciples to do the same. Jesus lived almost 2,000 years ago, but we still have a lot of the same boundaries in the world today that he challenged back then. There are boundaries that limit us and others from thinking and doing certain things. A lot of these boundaries revolve around politics, religion, race, socioeconomic status, and culture. We are called to follow Jesus' example and challenge all of these boundaries, especially the boundaries that we put around our own hearts. Boundaries like jealousy, anger, resentment, and fear. The love that Jesus taught is limitless. It defies all boundaries, and we are called to follow and live out that love. Jesus spent a lot of time with people that society considered sinful and unclean, people who were seen as different. A lot of the time he had meals with these people who were outcasts in society. This made a lot of people really angry, but Jesus was fighting for equality for all people without boundary. The example that Jesus gives us is not about tolerance. It goes way beyond that. It's about acceptance. It's about defying the limitations and breaking the barriers that society puts up and loving everyone. Now, I'm going to show you an example of the effect that boundaries have on us. This is Martin. If society puts a boundary on Martin, it's like they're putting him in a box. If society puts Martin in this box, he doesn't have a lot of room to move around. He's a little bit squished, but not super squished. So some of his opportunities are taken away from him when he's put in this box. But what if society puts Martin in this box? This box is a lot smaller. So if society puts Martin in this box, see, it's really hard to squish him in. It's a very small box. Society puts Martin in this box. He is so squished that he can no longer be himself. The boundaries that the world puts on him have changed him so that he can no longer be who he is or live out his life. This is what the boundaries in society, like racism and poverty, do to people. They squish people into tiny little boxes where they can't move around or be themselves because they're so restricted. This is why Jesus fought to break these barriers and boundaries, so that people can be freed from the tiny little boxes that society puts them in. But are all boundaries bad? This globe has a whole bunch of lines on it. The lines show the divides between the countries and the provinces. They also have other useful information like longitude and latitude and time zones in different hemispheres. Here you can see the equator that separates the northern and the southern hemispheres. There are other boundaries in society that are useful too. Boundaries like traffic lights and crosswalks keep people safe. And the lines on the floors of gyms show the boundaries for sports like volleyball and basketball so that the athletes know where they can play. The dangerous boundaries are the ones that we put on other people and on our hearts. We can't see these boundaries, but they can hurt us and others. Boundaries like, I can't play with those kids because they aren't in my grade, or I can't eat that food because it's not like the food I eat at home, can be as restricting as putting Martin in a box. They stop us from making friends or trying new things. These boundaries can stop us from seeing the whole picture of life and everyone's importance in it. So now we're going to read a story called Franklin Rides. It was a beautiful spring day, and Franklin could hear bees buzzing around the lavender shrubs that grew near the walkway in front of his house. His sister Lori, being afraid of bees, quickly ran past Franklin to where the van was parked at the curb. They were supposed to get in the van for a ride, but their parents were being mysterious about where they were going. Their neighbor, Mr. Lee, came out of the garage with her Mrs. Lee came out of the garage with her garden clippers and gloves. "My goodness, Laurie, you're getting so tall. Are you and Franklin going for a ride? Have a nice time." Then Mrs. Lee turned to her overgrown hedge with the clippers. Franklin looked at his older sister. Laurie was 13, and she was taller than most girls her age. As Franklin steered his wheelchair out to the sidewalk, he wondered how tall he would be if he could stand up. Franklin had never been able to stand up or walk because of a problem in his spine that he had when he was born. He suddenly realized that no one would ever say, "Franklin, you're getting so tall." In the van, Franklin and his sister talked about the superhero movie they had seen the night before. Laurie said the best character with the coolest superpower was the Invisible Girl. Having the power to be invisible would be cool, but Franklin's favorite was the man who ran super fast. He tried to imagine what it would be like to move your legs so fast that you could burn a hole in the sidewalk. His electric wheelchair was great, but it didn't move very fast. A superhero like that didn't need to go up wheelchair ramps or wait for an elevator ride or ride in a big van. He could go wherever he wanted. When they stopped at the mysterious destination, a horse ranch, Laurie squealed with excitement and jumped out of the car as soon as they parked. "What do you think, Franklin?" his mom asked. "Well, I think it will be impossible to get Laurie to leave this place. She loves horses more than anything." Franklin was actually glad Laurie was having fun, but he couldn't help thinking it was going to be pretty boring just hanging around and waiting for her. "Wouldn't you like to take a ride?" His mom was smiling, and he could tell she wasn't teasing him, but what she said didn't make sense. People who can't walk ride in wheelchairs, not on horses. "This is a special place, Franklin. The horses and teachers work with all kinds of kids, and you can go riding here." Franklin was amazed to find out that many of the kids who took riding lessons at the ranch were not able to walk. Some of the children had problems that made it difficult for them to talk or use their muscles in a controlled way. But with the special saddles and help from the therapists, all of them could ride. He had never been close to a real horse before. Franklin was surprised by how big they were. The trainer introduced him to Ranger, a gentle brown horse that nuzzled Franklin with his very soft black nose. Franklin stroked Ranger's smooth brown neck. He could feel the warmth of the horse's body and smell his horsey smell. He decided he loved the smell. The hair of Ranger's mane was coarse and black, and he looked calmly out of his big brown eyes as Franklin spoke gently to him. The trainers were all very friendly, and before he really knew what was happening, Franklin was on Ranger's back with a riding helmet on his head. It was the first time in his life he looked down at his mom and dad and sister. Laurie grinned and said, "Franklin, you're so tall." Franklin took weekly riding lessons. He learned how to talk to Ranger and how to use the muscles of his body to keep himself straight. Laurie came too and learned how to groom the horses and help the riders. It was their favorite part of the week. Franklin discovered that he could do a lot of things he never dreamed of. It was even better than imagining being a superhero because it was real. Cheering on the other kids and seeing their accomplishments was also fun. He made new friends, including a high school boy named Jake who took care of Ranger. Jake wanted to have his own stable one day. He said Franklin could have a job there because he was so good with the horses. Being in the wheelchair didn't seem quite so hard after Franklin learned he could ride a horse. Life seemed to have so many more possibilities. He was learning new skills and new things about himself every time he rode. But unfortunately, some people look at a wheelchair and think it is strange or weird. Franklin was the only kid at his school who needed a wheelchair to get around. One afternoon, he was halfway through the school door when the wheelchair caught on something, and Franklin was aware that people were waiting behind him as he tried to get unstuck. A boy pushed his way right up behind Franklin, saying, "Hey, wheelie boy, get a move on or this wheelie chair might get broken." Too embarrassed to say anything to the bully, Franklin tried to control the chair again. Just then, Jake, his friend from the stable, appeared in front of Franklin. The bully behind Franklin said, "Hey Jake, wheelie boy is blocking the door." Jake gave the bully a deep, silent stare, then smiled at Franklin and said, "It's great to see you, Franklin. I wanted to ask you a favor. I can't go to the stable today, but I wanted you to be sure to tell Ranger I'm sorry, but I'll be there tomorrow. And if you could check his right front hoof for me. It looked a bit sore yesterday. You're a real expert now, and I'd be grateful." Jake spoke slowly and calmly. He seemed in no hurry to get the door unblocked. Franklin relaxed and answered, "Sure, I'll be glad to check on Ranger and let you know if there is any problem." Only then did Jake look at the chair and seem to notice it was stuck. "Can I give you a hand out that door?" He reached down and lifted the front wheels over the door jamb. Then Franklin was able to roll through without any trouble. As Franklin went down the hall, he actually felt a little bad for the bully. Jake thought he must be sad and lonely to act so mean. Maybe Jake would invite him to come to the stable sometime. Then Franklin smiled and thought about Ranger and the next ride. So just like we've been doing the whole time we're online, you can discuss the questions with your siblings or your parents or anyone you want, or just think about them to yourself. So what kind of things did Franklin learn about himself at a ranch? Name some of the things other people learned about Franklin after he began riding lessons. Have you ever ridden on a horse? How did it make you feel? Name some things that you wouldn't be able to know about a person just by looking at them. Have you ever felt different from other people around you? Yeah. Bye. I hope you have a really good week, and I will see you next time.